We have one here from Chris William, The Rise in Men's Dating Advice. Found it interesting. Let's see.
It's genuinely a good thing that you found out now, because that person isn't ready to have a real relationship. So first off, if that does happen, see it as a good thing. But to sort of do a callback to what we spoke about at the very beginning, was it 64% of men aged 18 to 24 would feel uncomfortable crying in front of someone of their own sex, right? So the common internet advice is, don't open up to your girl. That's what your boys are for. Hang on a second.
That's true. Only because most of the time when you cry in front of a woman, it elicits a negative response in her very deeply. I have a few personal stories of this happening. I've heard it from a woman's mouth multiple times. I have a friend out in California. He is basically a brother to me, and his sister married a guy, and that dude is like a fucking gorilla, strong as hell, manly man, takes care of his business, leads the family. His sister said out loud at a family function, if I ever saw my husband cry, we're getting a divorce. That's it. I'm done. I'm disgusted. This isn't the man I chose to lead my family. That's not the man I love. That's what happens when you cry to your woman. And look, there may be some nuance here, and you're allowed to have one little tear, here and there for extreme life events. Probably your father passes away, your eye gets a little watery, and you wipe it and you go, I'm good, just remembering my father. That's it. If you cry during movies, if you bawl your eyes out, if you cry like a woman, like snot running down your nose, it's almost guaranteed that it's going to elicit some deep response in her that is going to have a negative view of you and will ultimately lead to the relationship ending. Because, man, and we've heard it said a million times by women, that it changes her perspective, her impression of who you are as a man, what she thought you were. The caricature that she built in her mind about who you were completely shifts. You have to be the rock. You have to be stable. Nothing can break you. You weather the storm, the high seas, the crazy winds, everything, and you're stable. She needs the stability. She draws from it because herself as a woman is very chaotic emotionally. They have crazy ups and downs. Men are just kind of stable, our energy and our mood levels. But women are kind of all over the place. So she needs you to be that support system that she can lean on and get comfort from, security from, which allows her to become more feminine and carefree. This isn't a bug, this is a feature. You have to be this guy in order to unlock her true femininity. Because if you cry like a bitch, you act like a woman in her eyes, she will never feel safe and secure enough to be a woman fully around you, fully succumb, fully submit, fully be feminine, because she has to raise her masculine levels up to protect herself from the inevitable failure of this, quote, weak, effeminate man who cries. Don't shoot the messenger, bro. I'm just telling.
2/3 of men aren't prepared to even do that. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me at what point people, and this is the best use of the word man up, like tell me at which point these guys are actually going to man up and integrate and transcend and include all of these emotions that they're facing, right? Like, when are you actually going to let the rubber meet the road with this?
When you allow men to congregate and form spaces, when you don't ban all online communities with men because one guy on there is a little bit unhinged and he's blowing off steam and that deems the entire community a threat or extremist, or, have to censor everybody. Men need male spaces to blow off steam. We've lost the Boy Scouts. They had to include women. We lost male only spaces. We don't promote competition anymore. We don't make young boys compete against one another, work with their hands, teach them about overcoming adversity and pursuing long-term goals where there's plenty of obstacles along the way and how to navigate them. That is all gone to the wayside, where we've begun to feminize our boys. We treat them like defective girls. Literally, that's a quote from one of these people, I forgot where, about how the school system treats our young boys through the lens of being a defective girl. So we have to medicate them. We have to suppress all their natural boyish characteristics, their energy, their mindset and mentality, and we have to brainwash them and reprogram them to think like the little girls do. This is just not an effective way to raise a young man. So you have these men that get into adulthood or their teenage years. They have not been able to form male bonds because we've taken away all these verticals where male bonds used to naturally form. We no longer have any form of coaching or mentorship for men. It's been relegated to just sports. But that used to be a big thing where you would be taken under somebody's wing when you had an interest in something and you'd get taught the ropes and all the knowledge that would be distilled down from an older man that had decades of experience in said field or specialty. That's gone now. We are completely disconnected. So men can't form these spaces, these friendships, these close knit brotherhoods anymore, where we used to show our emotions, where we used to tell the guys what was bothering us, where we used to share everything that troubled us as men. And it has to happen, and it only happens when you have a close knit group that you consider your brothers, that you could trust and take a bullet for. Those are the men that you will share your struggles with, go to for advice, and anything else that's wrong in your life. Men don't have that kind of close bond of brotherhood anymore. And so they don't feel secure. They don't feel like they could trust, or they don't just even have the friends whatsoever to open up about anything like that. The narrative in the mainstream dominates right now of you're a man, get over it. You had generations of privilege as a man. So it's about women's time. Anyways, who cares about your issues? You're a predator. The patriarchy benefits you. All this stuff, yada, yada, yada. Step aside for women. And now you have men that are lost, that are coming up in this new world with no identity, no definition of what it means to be a man, what masculinity truly is, and how to manage your emotions or anything manly, stoicism, adversity, competition, all that stuff we talked about before. That's all pushed to the side. You need to sit down and be in your feelings. You need to sit down and be feminine and talk. Let's talk it out. Let's not go on a 20-mile hike, beat our bodies up, unlock some wisdom in the pain, in the hardship of conquering a goal, like climbing the top of a mountain or something, or running 10 miles, or wrestling or MMA, going a few rounds with the boys, something like that. Nothing. We bond through physical exertion, through physical achievement. This is how we open up our brains to deeper thought. And yet, all of that is thrown to the wayside. And then they ask this stupid ass question, sorry to say, why aren't men stepping up and being emotionally available? Step up and be emotionally available to who? The people that depend on you? Your family? Your girlfriend? Wife? These people look up to you, or at least they should in a healthy relationship. These people depend on you. You're the pillar. You're the immovable object who never crumbles under pressure. And now you want to show all of them that you crumble under pressure. Come on, man. Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, when I look out at the internet today and you see this huge swell within men's work, within the manosphere, within Red Pill, certain figures that are online that have just had a meteoric rise. In many ways, it's because they're speaking to the sort of cultural underpinnings of what men are experiencing. We're living through one of the first times, in my opinion, in almost all of history, all of known history, where masculinity isn't getting defined by men, right? Culturally, if you look at what makes a good man and what makes a man masculine, there's sort of this battle for being able to define it. And I think it was Yuval Harari in Sapiens, maybe it was Homo Deus, where he talks about how in the future, the wars will be fought within intersubjective reality, within the reality of story, within the reality of narrative. And I think that that's where a lot of the quote unquote gender wars are happening right now. It's within the realm of story and within the realm of narrative. And so anyway, that's a little existential, but to pull it back down to reality, I think you're right. There's this very big challenge that a lot of men feel, which is they're being told specifically by a lot of women to open up, by society, by Instagram, by Facebook. It's like, open up, be more vulnerable. And then there's a bit of a mixed bag when they do it, or they don't feel like they have the proper resources to go.
I want to see how they actually say advice to men who want to open up more.
What would you say to a guy that's been listening to this, or a girl that's been listening to this, and wants advice on how to begin like embodying that vulnerable, emotionally open side? Is there anything tactically, strategically that you think are good steps in order for somebody to go through, either before they do it, or how to do it, or who to do it with, or when to do it?
Yeah, I wanted to just make one comment on something that you said before. You were talking about the like mass confusion, and I couldn't agree with you more. And if the people that are listening just envision masculinity as a physical body for a moment, then confusion is one of the most toxic things for that masculine body. And so one of the surest ways to dilute masculinity and to dilute men and their potency is to just confuse the shit out of them. And when you can do that, then you've eroded a sense of masculinity, because masculinity, there's an assuredness, there's a clarity that feels safe. There's a sense of direction and an assertiveness about that direction. That's the way that we're moving. That's the direction that we're moving. That those are some of the core tenets of masculinity, and we have eroded that. And we've allowed that to be eroded. And so if we can return to this, no, I'm not confused about X, Y, and Z. I'm very sure, right? If we can just return to that place, I think it's very, very important. So I just wanted to touch on that. One of the things that I think is incredibly important for all men, and one of the things that I talk a lot about, is just the notion of confronting your own shadow, your own darkness, the parts of you that you don't like, that you don't want other people to know about, that you are insecure about. Those parts of you as a man are the elements of you that need confrontation. Carl Jung had this great sort of quote where he said that the first step in any therapeutic or psychological modality is confession. And it's the same with any religious process, any spiritual process, any kind of healing or change or transformation, whatever label you want to put on it. Confession and admission is the first step. And what you're talking about, what you're confessing and admitting to, are the things that you ultimately don't want to talk about. So I would say, for the guys that are out there or the women that are out there, find a place. And you might need to try a few. You might need to, whether it's a therapist or a psychologist or a men's group or whatever it is, find a place where you can start to break that first rule of men, to bring this full circle, right? To break that first rule of don't talk about what it's like to be struggling, to be, to have some challenge in your life where you just don't know how to deal with it. And when you can do that, your psychological resiliency will start to develop, right? Your confidence will start to develop. So if you can confront these parts of you, your insecurities, your fears, the decisions that you've made that you don't like, the choices that you've made, the fact that like maybe you're working a job that you absolutely freaking hate, but you don't know what to do about it. When you can begin to confront those things and bring your sort of internal truth out onto the table for other people to see, you can begin to work with it, and you can begin to get feedback on how you can shape it and how you can mold it. So I would say the first step, go and find a group. We are not meant to deal with grief in isolation. We are not meant to deal with our anger in isolation. We are not meant to deal with our own psychological hardship in isolation. We are meant to do that with others, and we're meant to do that with others who have run the gamut before. So that's my second part, is find some mentors in some capacity that you respect and that you admire. You probably listen to this podcast because Chris is somebody that you respect and admire, and he brings on a ton of incredible people. But find people that you can be influenced by more directly. We have devalued the actual inherent necessity to be influenced by other people. And we think that we live in this sort of narcissistic state, and this very arrogant state of belief that we shouldn't allow ourselves to be influenced by other people, when it's almost a necessity for human being, right? Especially for men, to be influenced by other men. That's why the saying, iron sharpens iron, right? It's other men are influencing you. So find a mentor, find a group, right? Find some resources that you can dig into, and then I think the last piece is start to replace some of your coping mechanisms and maladaptive behaviors that are keeping you in place. We all have these terrible mechanisms that we use to keep us stuck. Maybe it's smoking weed or playing video games or eating shitty food late at night. just systematically start to replace one at a time. Don't try and do all of them at once, but replace one at a time, right? So choose one. Okay, I'm going to stop smoking weed and replace that with a generative habit that you can feel good about. Because the reality is that for what a lot of men are missing is a deeper knowing and understanding of competency and capability. And so these are some of the pieces that will start to move you in the right direction.
I love the touch on competence and trust in your own word, because, seeking validation from other people involves you often trading what you want to do for what they want to do. And building self-esteem a lot of the time involves trading what other people want you to do for what you want you to do. And we end up defaulting to the former rather than the latter. And over time then begin to ask, why is it that my self-esteem is in the fucking toilet? It's like, well, because you have done what other people have wanted you to do, and you haven't stood up for yourself, and you haven't told the truth for 2 decades. Why would you trust you? If you had a friend that was you wouldn't invite them out to dinner. You wouldn't expect them to turn up to parties.
By the way, the advice he gave, we'll end it on that. The advice he gave was absolutely spot on. It's lacking detail because the answer is nuanced for everybody else, depending on where you live, how much money you have, what you have access to. So I would advise that people do this. By the way, the Spartan challenge, everything he described is found within the Spartan challenge. It usually comes up on the screen, up here somewhere. It's a picture of a Spartan and it says test yourself, and it's always at the end of every video. And it's just a couple of tenets in there for 6 months. It's a promise to yourself to get rid of all your bad coping mechanisms temporarily, just 6 months. It's a promise to yourself to eat clean, to journal. Again, accepting what journaling does is it allows you to get within your own brain, write down your thoughts without being distracted. Meditation, it allows you to get deeper within yourself. You're going to suck at it in the beginning, but that's fine. And then you pick something physical that you want to pursue: mountain biking, running, climbing, whatever the hell it is, weightlifting. And then you try to master that craft. That's what you choose. Now you do all these things together, and reading books because you want to intake new information that isn't, low quality YouTube stuff or social media shorts, reels, stuff like that constantly grabs your attention, hijacks your brain's dopamine, and it gets you hooked, and you're not really learning anything. So we're essentially dopamine detoxing you from social media, from all your negative coping mechanisms that you use when you feel under pressure or stressed or something bad's happening to you. And again, it's only 6 months, guys. And there's a whole Discord community created. It's public and it's free to join. And there's guys that are logging in all their daily progress every day. That's one of the things, the daily check-in and accountability buddies and all that stuff. It's incredibly powerful. It's changed a bunch of men's lives who really dive into it. This message is only going to hit the men that want to change, that know there's something missing out of life, that there has to be more to this than there currently is. For those men, this Spartan challenge will absolutely resonate deeply with you. For the guys that are still in denial or okay living mediocre lives or don't see anything wrong with what they're doing, and that's fine, bro. The message is not for you and you probably won't receive it well anyways, and falls on deaf ears. But if you are one of these men and this video hits you in a different manner and you're thinking to yourself, damn, like I'm not happy with my situation. I want better for myself. Like this can't be all there is to life. I swear I'm made for more. There has to be more I can get out of this. I can't live my entire life this way. If that's you, you should be in the Spartan challenge. We have incredible stories. I've even interviewed some on the channel of men whose lives changed dramatically. Incredible weight loss, weight gain. Dudes have gotten girlfriends for the first time in their lives. Massive multiple promotions at work. Crazy stuff. Crazy, man. And all it is one little step every day, just following that small formula of those, few promises to yourself, where you turns you into a different man. And by the way, everybody that's successfully completed it, because it's not easy, its beauty is in its simplicity, is what I always say, and its difficulty is in its consistency. That's what makes the challenge incredible. 6 months of doing the same thing day in and day out, and it'll transform you. And once you're done, you'll see that a lot of the new habits that you've built for yourself, you'll actually retain. And you may not go back to the old ones you did. You may consider yourself above them, a whole new person. You can be the guy you dream of being. And I've said this before on the channel plenty of times. The man you dream of being is actually you. It's the disciplined version of you. It's the one that does all the hard work that needs to be done every single day. That's all it is. He's not special. He's not gifted. He doesn't have something you don't have. It's just you with discipline. Once you realize this, man, like your eyes will open up to the potential. Only then will you start to bridge the gap between dreams and reality. And I implore all men to at least try, because it will leave your jaw on the floor. All right. Enough preaching to the choir, dude. You know what you got to do. We'll see you guys on the next one.